In John chapter 21, Jesus comes to restore Peter. And the amazing thing is, he says this question in verse 16. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you really love me?" And so he begins to press Peter into this corner, and he asks whether he truly loves Jesus, and then is he really coming to that place where his intention, his heart, his focus is this true devotion, this not just this kind of superficial friendship, but this deep love, this deep connection, in a way that Peter's life is tightly bound up with the life of Jesus, that his life is consumed by that love. His life is taken over and fulfilled, made complete in that love. And that love is it's not a sexual union. It's not something of that nature. It's a love that comes through this reality of encountering the living God. It's encountering Jesus in the depth of his being, a reality that will take him much further than he's ever been before. We know that at the fire, at that bonfire in that courtyard where Peter 3 times denies Jesus, Jesus comes back to him and says on 3 occasions, "Do you love me?" Peter's kind of response is weak. Well, I like you. That's what it really means in the Greek. I'm pretty fond of you. Okay, Peter, do you love me? Well, yeah. You're a really good friend. Someone I'm really pretty close to, I would say, more or less. And then Jesus says, "Well, do you like me? Are you my friend?" And Peter says, "Definitely, I love you. I really am, all the way, wholeheartedly. It's not something that I'm just trying to stir up in my emotions. It's not something that I'm just trying to manufacture about my own self-will to, I've got to like God a bit more. No, something's rooted, something has broken inside my self-will that says I'm giving myself, I'm surrendering myself. It's not me anymore, but I'm really offering myself. Here I am. This is who I am. I'm the broken vessel that you realized was going to deny you. But the amazing thing is that your love in me has done something profound, deep, real. It's impacted me at the core of my being. Something has radically changed. That's the love of God that comes in and invades our life, and that's the love of encounter. It's the love of true depth. It's the love that we get that picture of that in some ways within human relationship. God wants us to understand that and try and picture that, because it helps us, it points us. But there's something much more profound, there's something much more powerful, there's something much more eternal and real, and at its core is something it's the same love and devotion and commitment that Daniel and his friends had in the middle of the fire. There was that fourth person in the fire. There they were in the midst of the worst of tragedies and persecution, and they encountered the living God in that place. And we see that Jesus commissions Peter. Peter was grieved the way Jesus asked the question the 3rd time. And he responds, "Lord, you know my heart. You know who I am. You know everything about me." And out of that place of wholehearted commitment, that's the place where that commissioning happens. And Jesus says something very simple. It's not that complicated, really. "Then feed my little sheep," as the Living New Testament says. It's that responsibility to care for the flock of God. It's that responsibility to look after God's people. That sounds like it's a it's not a big job, but of course the reality of looking after people is a complicated one. It's one that requires sensitivity, one that requires self-sacrifice. It doesn't come easy. You know, the journey of caring for people is always a challenge, and it's always a learning curve, isn't it, as well? And then Jesus says to Peter in verse 18, when you were young, you were able to do as you liked and go wherever you wanted to. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and others will direct you and take you where you don't want to go. And there's something about the end of Peter's life, there's something about the end of his story, which tells us something about his wholehearted surrender. It tells us something about him as an old man being willing to go the way of the cross, being willing to head towards martyrdom, being willing to be led. And it seems such a complete opposite to the Peter that we see, the hot-headed, stubborn, insistent, wants to be in charge type of Peter. It seems such a different character to the Peter of denial and failure. It seems such a different character, the Peter who struggles to face Jesus again in a sense of, will I be accepted? Will I be received? Will the shame go? And this is the Peter, as time goes on, you see other instances in his life, great boldness, sometimes mistakes, but a Peter whose heart is slowly tuned to the heart of God, whose willingness, whose meekness in the face of real persecution is prepared to walk the walk that Jesus takes him into. So my prayer today, we always these little talks challenge me as much as anybody listening to it. But my prayer today is that in this journey, God would help us, that our hearts would be in tune with Him, that our heart's journey would be moving away from the hot-headedness, moving away from the stubbornness, moving away from even the failure, even the denial, even the sense of shame and embarrassment. So are we going to be rejected? All those mixtures of feelings, those different stages of life that might come to us, and the situations that might bring those thoughts and emotions. All those things, I just pray that God will just bundle them all up, and He can dispose of them. But we are wrapped up in Him, in His love, that we would experience the comfort of His love, and we would experience the grace that abounds, and the grace that covers a multitude of sins, and we'll see that amazing love that covers them too, and in that process we would experience the mercy of God, and we would experience the willingness of our hearts to turn towards Him and allow Him to lead us and take us where He's asking us to go, and a willing heart, a heart willing to submit and surrender. I really pray for that for us. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord, in that journey. Help us. Allow us to be molded into the image of Christ, and allow us to be available. And of course, God allows that, but we just want to pray that our hearts be willing to submit and roll with that as well. And in the process, as God softens, as God changes, as God moves in us, as He makes us into all that He has for us, it's His love that does that shaping process. It's His love that makes something beautiful out of what feels broken. God restores. God makes something wonderful. I see for some of you almost like this incredibly beautiful pottery that God is making, and it's just stunning, incredible colors, just a work of art. And you say, how did I ever become that? And I feel like the Lord is saying, you will become that because I'm making you, I'm creating you, I'm forming you. Um, I'm doing that special work of art in you. I'm filling in gold into the cracks. I'm making you whole, even in broken places. I'm going to pour in my gold, even in those places where there's, uh, a rough surface. I'm going to use that to stick on some color, make it beautiful, do something special. So that's my prayer, that God will take all these things, all these mixed emotions that we might be having, and all these mixed emotions that may have been very, very characteristic of different periods of our life, and that He'll take all those things, and then He'll do something more amazing with our lives than we could ever imagine, and fill you with His love, joy, hope, peace, patience, kindness, and that incredible long suffering and forbearance, that longevity of faith that experiences His faithfulness, the perseverance of His faithfulness. And as we experience that, then we will be able to walk in that place of faithfulness. We'll be able to walk that journey and that walk with Him wherever He leads us. So that's my prayer for us today.